If you're of the generation that grew up with the internet and mainly used it for pleasure, you're probably familiar with a little program called BitTorrent. This program, which enabled peer-to-peer file sharing, thrust the debate of intellectual property into the public sphere for many years, as it happened to threaten media producers who relied on those intellectual property laws for revenue. This was intentional. Bram Cohen, the creator of the BitTorrent protocol, is a self-described technological activist in favor of free speech and access to software. BitTorrent, obviously in line with these values, is a way for him and others to achieve these freedoms. One incredibly important thing to note here is that what Cohen created allowed for people to uphold these values without consciously realizing them. A teenager does not need to read the Hacker's Manifesto to have an impact when they download a cracked version of Photoshop or some video game. Simply by acting, they are undermining the assumptions about the nature of intellectual property and whether or not it should be respected. We can see something similar occurring right now with regards to paywalls for scientific knowledge. In 2011, Alexander Elbakan, a Kazakhstani neuroscientist, created the website Sci-Hub as a way of circumventing paywalls on published research. While scientific knowledge has always been controlled by journals that gatekeep with entry fees, the situation today is much worse, thanks to oligopolistic control of publishing by 5 major publishers. Reed Elsevier, Wiley-Blackwell, Springer and Taylor, and Francis currently control more than 50% of all scientific output. The consolidation of power has led to ridiculous profit margins. Reed Elsevier has had a profit margin of over 30% since 2005. This price inflation is felt around the world. Universities as prolific as Harvard are no longer able to afford the costs of certain journals, and if the top universities in the world are choosing not to purchase these journals, then universities in developing countries, like the one Elbakan worked at, have no chance. So she created Sci-Hub in response. Sci-Hub was able to get around the paywall by using accounts that could access the journals. Once Sci-Hub had accessed the article, it downloaded it and stored it server-side. This allowed it to amass a sizable amount of documents that can't really be taken off the internet. In 2015, the original domain name, scihub.org, was taken down by a court order, but, just like the Pirate Bay, it was mirrored across several different servers. At the time of writing, Sci-Hub can be found on a variety of domains, .io, .cc, .biz, and through the Onion Tor hidden service. The site is effectively impossible to take down. While knowledge of the service is not as ubiquitous as torrenting was in the aughts, Sci-Hub is having a similar effect on the control of information. According to Elbakan, Sci-Hub was used to download 28 million documents in 2015. The service has become truly global, with high download rates across both developing and developed countries. Thanks to Sci-Hub, people from all sorts of backgrounds can now access quality research without having to shell out quite a bit of cash. This is good, not just for scientists and researchers from poor countries who can't afford the high costs, but also people from all sorts of backgrounds. Amateurs, entrepreneurs, and independent scholars can now access articles that would otherwise set them back significantly. And in letting millions of people access articles that would otherwise be out of their reach, Elbakan, like Cohen, has given them a way to make a political statement without them even consciously realizing it. The real impact of Sci-Hub remains to be seen, however. Just like BitTorrent eventually led to services like Spotify and Netflix, Sci-Hub will likely force the publishing model to adapt and become more like Sci-Hub. There are many possibilities for what this could eventually look like. One prominent one with an intellectual history that goes back to the 90s is open access, which calls for scientific research to be licensed under a Creative Commons license, effectively destroying any legal right to put up paywalls for articles. There are legitimate criticisms of the open access movement, however. Many open access journals are of low quality and do not properly assess the articles that they publish. Furthermore, while the publishing monopolies do profit off taxpayer-funded research, they do serve legitimate functions. They help to curate and review the articles that are published. The next model of scientific publishing cannot just be opening the floodgates to anyone. The scientific community must come together and determine for themselves what they want publishing to look like in the age of free information. But in this transition period, we can be sure that millions around the world will benefit from more access to quality information thanks to the work of Elbakan.